I'm Jonathan Mason, and today I want to talk about diets and how they affect the type 2 diabetic. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'll see you straight after this disclaimer. Diets are one of those topics that people love to promote, and the marketers do a wonderful job of telling you about the diet and all the wonderful benefits that you will receive if you follow their specific diet. They all have success stories of people that have had excellent results and are now living their dream lifestyle. But I think it's time now to come out of that marketing and media world of hype. It's time, I think, to consider the facts. Diets are about what food we eat and how much of each food. So we have to start with the basic question of, what does food give us? Well, it gives us a source of fuel that we can live and provide the energy that we need. But I think it's a little more than that. If you want a diet that is healthy for you and that will reverse your type 2 diabetes, you've got to examine what else the food can give you. Now, it gives us essential vitamins like vitamin A, B12, B complex, C, D, and a whole host of other vital vitamins to maintain our health. It gives us minerals like calcium and manganese. It gives us carbohydrates. It gives us proteins that fuel your brain and builds up the cartilage in your body. It gives us fats and oils that are essential for the smooth functioning of our bodies. So, following some sort of fad diet is not always the advisable thing to do, especially when you have an illness like type 2 diabetes. Now, type 2 diabetes is directly related to the food we eat. So let us look briefly at some more of the popular diets and see how they came to be, and then we'll examine them in the light of a person who has type 2 diabetes like myself. Now, if you haven't seen the video, Understanding Diabetes, I'll leave the link below in the description box. And I would recommend that you view this video if you don't know how diabetes works, as it will certainly make anything that I say from here a lot clearer. So let us have a look at specific diets. Now, the first one I'm going to look at is the famous calorie counting diet. Now, this diet is certainly one that I bought into the early stages of my diabetes, as it was the one that the doctors were recommending. Now, in this diet, the rules are easy, and it's simple logic that anyone can understand. And it goes like this. A person uses X amount of calories or energy per day. So if a person only consumes X amount of calories or energy per day, then that person will be fine. They won't lose weight and they won't gain it. Now, if a person wants to lose weight, then they must just consume less calories and the weight will go down accordingly. So in other words, you just starve yourself a little while and the weight will come off. It sounds simple, doesn't it? And that is why it's had such a great appeal over the ages, because it's a simple logic. So why is it not a diet that keeps the weight off or reverse your type 2 diabetes? Because I certainly lost a lot of weight on the diet, but I did not reverse my type 2 diabetes. So when you understand type 2 diabetes, you know that the disease is linked to insulin resistance, which is directly linked to the carbohydrates that you consume. So when you reduce your calories, you will reduce your carbohydrates, but you'll also reduce your proteins and your fats. But this leaves you hungry because you are insulin resistant, and the carbohydrates that you are consuming are not getting used efficiently, and this means that the other sources of foods that you are eating are not getting utilized. Because while there are carbohydrates in your bloodstream, they cannot utilize the proteins and fats. This will ensure that when you get off your diet, your body will remain hungry and you will put all the weight back on. So it does not address the primary underlying cause of the problem. It is at most just a superficial answer. So the idea is, don't make yourself hungry. Eat only until you are satiated. Now, I think this is one of the big main failings of the calorie counting diet, is that it causes you to be hungry, and that exacerbates the problem of type 2 diabetes. Your body, when functioning properly, has a fat-saving mechanism. It has a built-in mechanism to save as much energy in the event that it'll be needed later, like during a famine or a longer periods of fasting. This means that you must only eat until you're satiated. But we seem to have lost the ability to know when we are satiated. Our culture has determined that we must gorge ourselves to enjoy ourselves. This is a new way of celebration. Let's go to the restaurant, let's stuff our faces, let's, feel till we're bursting, then we are happy. But this is not something that the body wants. So this diet is useful in calculating how much food we should have, especially when we don't know when we are full. But in order for this to work, you have to have the balance right between the types of foods, especially in relation to your carbohydrates, because as a type 2 diabetic, excessive carbohydrates will deny your body access to other food types. So let us have a look at another diet, and I think it is a pretty useful diet. I think vegetarianism was a first real diet to try and tackle healthy eating. But note, it did not try to solve the problem of type 2 diabetes. This was a time when people began to realize that there was a lot of bad food on our supermarket shelves. And what vegetarianism did acknowledge was that food was made up of a lot more than just energy. It was made up of vitamins and minerals and proteins and fats, etc. And we needed all these ingredients to provide us with a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. And they were correct in this assumption. But the reason vegetarianism was not the solution to type 2 diabetes is it did not recognize the particular role that carbohydrates played in the disease. Now, one of the earlier failings of this diet was that it was easy to become protein deficient. But this was recognized, and like all diets, have evolved over time. Now, this is a very useful diet, as it has a lot of essential elements that make up healthy eating. It makes a good diet for healthy eating if you avoid all the processed foods that are on our supermarket shelves. Now, vegetarianism also does not recognize that animal protein and fats as being healthy. Now, there's absolutely no evidence that animal protein and fats are bad for all people. As a type 2 diabetic, it is very difficult to reverse your diabetes without consuming some animal products. Now, there are proteins and fats in some vegetarian foods, such as nuts, etc., but I could not balance my diet without including animal protein and fats. Now, from the start, a lot of diets like veganism and pescatarianism, etc., developed, and they refined the vegetarian diet into ones that they believe are more healthy and more desirable. But none of them completely solved the problem of the type 2 diabetic, of what to eat and of how much to eat. So I want to go on now to another diet, and this is a diet that I think is quite appalling. It's called the low-fat diet. This diet has been what I would call one of the worst diets on the market, and was developed as a knee-jerk reaction to some sort of skewed information. Now, this happened when the scientists recognized that we were getting too much fat in our diet, and the clever marketers out there jumped onto the bandwagon and began the craze of creating low-fat foods. Now, low-fat foods is a very, very profitable industry. But fats, you see, are essential for one's diet, for the absorption of nutrients into the body. So the question to ask is, and I think it's a very good question, so what were the scientists on about? Were they wrong? No, they weren't wrong, and they were quite correct in their research. But what science had discovered is that the fats were not being absorbed into our body easily and were causing problems like high cholesterol, which puts you at risk of heart attack and stroke. But the real issue is what fats were doing that. And I think it's important to define what fats were causing this. Now, later research showed that it was refined fats and oils that were the main cause behind this. These were oils like vegetable oils and margarines, all oils that were processed. These are commonly referred to as trans fats and hydrogenated fats and partially hydrogenated fats. Now, the fats that have not been processed are natural and healthy fats that the body can easily utilize. Now, these are fats like your virgin olive oils and cold-pressed nut oils and your animal fats. These are natural, healthy fats that your body can easily utilize and is easily recognized by your body. So this is a diet that I think everybody should try and avoid and not buy into. Unfortunately, it is such a craze that the supermarket shelves are simply bursting with these products advertising low fat. Now, be sure to watch my video, A Crash Course in Healthy Eating for Type 2 Diabetes, where I cover this in a little more detail. Now, I'll leave a link to this video in the description box below. Now, just remember, healthy eating alone is not the complete answer to reversing your Type 2 diabetes, but it does set a very solid foundation to an ongoing sustainable diet. There is another diet I want to cover, and that is the GI diet. This diet is a diet that was developed around the glycemic index of food, and it was specifically aimed at type 2 diabetics. Understanding the glycemic index and the glycemic load of food is important, as the glycemic index is a measure of how fast or how slowly food is absorbed into the body. Now, the higher the food is on the glycemic index, the faster the food is absorbed into the body, and the higher your blood glucose readings will spike. Now, as a type 2 diabetic, it is favorable for you to consume foods that have a lower glycemic index, as this will mean that your blood glucose reading will be more stable. But this diet alone does not take into consideration how many carbohydrates you are consuming, as it has no ways of measuring how resistant you are to your insulin. You must remember that you also need enough calories, proteins and fat to maintain the full activity of your body, and this is very difficult when you are only looking at the glycemic index. You need carbohydrates, and you have to have a certain level of carbohydrates. So it is very important, but it does not have all the tools you will need to reverse your type 2 diabetes effectively. The last diet I want to talk about is the paleo diet. Now, this is a diet that says, if you eat like Paleolithic man, you will be healthy. Now, the argument is sound, as Paleolithic man did not suffer from the same diseases we do. And it is a fantastic way to eat if you are healthy and you don't suffer from insulin resistance. But you see, in modern times, we too diabetics have built up a resistance to insulin, something that Paleolithic man did not do, as he was not exposed to the overload of sugary and products and processed foods that we have been. So our bodies have lost the ability to process foods as well as they could. And this is something that we have to learn to live with. Does this mean this diet is no good for us? Certainly not. It all depends how far down the line our resistance to insulin has progressed. Now, some people are at the early stages, and they are not that insulin resistant. Some of us, like myself, have become very insulin resistant. But the paleo diet cannot reverse your type 2 diabetes without watching the carbohydrates you consume. Now, some of the foods that they are consuming are very healthy. They are full of fiber and have lots of nutrients. And this makes this diet, that's full of food, quite valuable. But we need to examine the foods and see which ones are suitable for us as a type 2 diabetic. The encouraging news is that today there is an awakening and a desire to have a healthy diet. I will cover healthy eating in a later video, as it is essential to eat healthy if you want to reverse your type 2 diabetes. But you need to do more than just eating healthy. You need to work out how resistant to insulin you are and how many carbohydrates your body can tolerate. So what diet am I recommending for reversing your type 2 diabetes? Well, I'm suggesting the ketogenic diet to start with. This is essentially a diet that puts you into a state of ketosis. Now, in ketosis, the body switches from using carbohydrates as a primary source of fuel to using fats that are stored in your body. Now, it's important to note that ketosis acts like a switch when it comes to type 2 diabetes. You must see my battle with type 2 diabetes, both part 1 and 2, and what it did for me and the lessons I learned in this regard. I'll leave the links in the description box below here. Now, it's not something you just want to jump into, but it's something that must be approached more carefully. Now, what ketogenic diet does do is it gives you a starting point as to how many carbohydrates your body can tolerate. Because as you come out of ketosis, you will gradually increase your carbohydrates. And whilst you're doing this, you'll be monitoring your weight, and you'll also be monitoring your blood glucose levels. Now, if your blood glucose levels go up, then you will know your insulin resistance level. But if your weight goes up, then you might have to reduce your fats and your protein intake. But I will cover this in more detail in later videos. Now, I make recommendations on how to structure your diet and how to utilize much of the wisdom imparted with the many healthy eating diets that are freely available to you. It will be after that you'll be encouraged to formulate your own diet, a diet that you feel that you can live with, that is sort of tailored to your personal tastes. I would urge you to continue educating yourself about type 2 diabetes, as it will enable you to be more informed as to how to combat. Continue with this program and you will have all the tools you need to reverse your type 2 diabetes by making the right lifestyle choices. All my videos on this program are free to look at. I give you the exact diet plan that I followed and the formula for you to calculate your own meal plans. I also give you information on how to go into the diet safely and to avoid some of the experiences I had and how to come out of it safely. There is also advice on how to manage your diet and accordingly your diabetes once you have stabilized. I give you advice on what to look for as you grow older and to maintain that self-rewarding health. Now, reward yourself with good health and change your lifestyle like I did and enjoy more vitality and experience the joy of a living life. Now, in my next video, Healthy Eating Crash Course for Type 2 Diabetics, I suggest some of the foods that you should avoid and some of the foods that I think are beneficial. So please join me in my next video, Healthy Eating Crash Course for Type 2 Diabetics. If you would like to help me reverse type 2 diabetes around the world, then please like, subscribe and share these videos. But if you would like to get involved in helping me to spread the word in a more direct way, then please go to my website where you can find the program's mission statement along with a complete set of videos and a whole lot of other helpful aids that a type 2 diabetic could need. It is also a place where I will hope to build a supportive community environment. I would like to thank anyone in advance who graciously donates to this cause and shares these videos. It is this support that enables this information to reach more people and to change lives. Have a wonderful day.